I want to thank Marvelous for sending me a copy of this game to review. Gacha games are popular, but my only real experience with them, like many of you I'm sure, are the Nintendo titles, specifically Fire Emblem Heroes and Mario Kart Tour. But in Japan, this gameplay genre, style, whatever, is more popular, with many success stories. One of these is Cygames' Granblue Fantasy, a fantasy world seemingly inspired by that of Final Fantasy XII, with airships, floating islands, and animal girls galore. Lots and lots of animal girls. It was even popular enough to get anime adaptation, although, to be honest, that might also be the standard for gacha games. I honestly don't know. It does have a banging OP though, that I can't play due to copyright. All of this has been to say that Granblue is a popular series in Japan, that the devs want to expand out with spin-offs and other types of games that might draw in a wider crowd, and Granblue Fantasy Versus is the first step towards this. But has it soared high or sunk beneath the clouds? Let's find out. Made by the king of fast-paced, high-octane action fighting games, Ark System Works, Granblue Fantasy Versus takes some of the more popular and unique characters of the Granblue universe and puts them together in combat. Going into this, the only character I knew about was Catalina, but turns out this generic looking dude Gran is the protagonist. It also turns out he's an avatar character in the original game, with his female counterpart Jita, who is DLC in this game. They know what they were doing with that decision. The roster of this game isn't very big, having only 11 at the start with an additional 5 as DLC, and some boss-only fighters for the game's story mode, which might seem a little small because it kind of is for modern fighters. That said, having a small roster has its advantages, because nearly every character feels distinct, with a unique playstyle. Whether it's an effeminate wrestler like La Diva, or a tiny swordsman that flings herself across the stage, there is something for everyone. Maybe having a small roster also allows the game to have more charm. Not only does every fighter have their own theme, as well as special themes that play when two specific characters fight, like Percival and Lancelot, but every fighter has unique pre- and post-battle dialogue, based on who they're up against, and how they end the fight as well. In the case of Loane, he even has special dialogue triggered by certain actions, like if your opponent whiffs their super attack against him. Also, Loane just generally has the best victory screen I've seen in any fighting game ever. The Mad Lads. This game oozes charm, and it's spread across all the menus, music, and animations, although the latter could be better. It's clear there wasn't much thought put into stuff like clipping and layers, leading to some weird immersion breaking moments. It can also look really static during the story mode dialogue scenes, although Rackham is still best boy, even when he looks like this. The game's presentation has that Ark System Works magic, just not as much as their original IPs do. But does this apply to the gameplay as well? Now, I'm not a hardcore fighting game player. I couldn't tell you the difference between a plus-on blocker and Okizeme, but I can tell you if a fighting game is fun and approachable, and I think Granblue is both of these and more. The basic mechanics involve your standard light, medium, heavy attacks, with a unique attack that can be a command grab, a parry, a charge attack. It really depends on your fighter. Then every character has an overhead and a tripper, as well as a really pitiful grab attack. It's all your standard 2D fighting game affair. So let's look at the more unique aspects of the game, specials and blocking. The specials are where the game becomes more approachable. You have two options for specials, either a traditional combo input, which are universal across all characters, your Hadouken and Shoryuken inputs as examples, and these can be strengthened depending on whether you end the input with the light, medium or heavy button. Light is often the bare minimum version of a special, while heavy is the EX version, and medium usually lets your character charge their special, or at least delay it to trip your opponent up. But if all that stick twitching and precise button tapping isn't your thing, Granblue also works on Super Smash Bros. Logic. Players have a dedicated special button, and pressing this performs your standard special. Then forward, up and back, rather than down, will have the player perform one of their other specials. This input always uses the basic light variant and is often weaker than put in the actual input, although weaker versions of the EX variants can be used as well by pushing the special and the heavy attack button together. It sounds like a lot when I map it out like this, but it's really not in-game, and is very self-explanatory. It makes approaching a 2D fighting game much easier, as you can feel like you're pulling off exciting looking combos, which is really all casual players want to do. This same simplicity goes to the super and ultra attacks as well, which all rely on the Hadouken input. Usually it's a double Hadouken input and then either heavy or unique depending on if you want super or ultra, but it can be made simple with a single Hadouken input, and then the special button, or special button plus unique button for ultra. Super and Ultras are gained in the typical fighting game style of having a meter that builds up to 100%, although Ultra is only available if your health drops below 20%. The Ultra acts more like a comeback move as long as you can hit it, as it deals a lot of damage. It's not too hard to avoid your opponent using it, unless they are Saurius or Loane, in which case just try and survive against this nonsense. Okay, it's actually doable when you know the mechanics, but it's super cheap for first time players. The last piece of gameplay to cover are the defensive maneuvers, and I like how it's handled. Like most 2D fighters, you can block by holding away from where you are facing, but as the player automatically turns to face the opponents, this can cause you to fall out of block if your opponent manages to get overhead. To avoid this, however, you can use the dedicated block button, which allows you to block from both sides. Personally, I played with both and found the block button to be superior, especially as you use it to perform rolls and spot dodges as well. Pushing forward while blocking will have the player roll forward to get past projectiles or characters, while pressing back and block allows the player to dodge while standing still. Pulling off any of these, especially the spot dodge, is really hype and just one of the few things the game does to make battles feel dynamic. A personal favourite of mine is when two attacks clash at the same time and everything momentarily slows down to show the impact. It's really cool. A word of advice on this: keep out of the corners and get your opponents into them. This game encourages entrapping your foes in the corner, so much so that many of the harder combos taught in the game's practice mode can only be done when your opponent is trapped in the corner. Talking about practice modes, it is honestly fantastic. You have the usual free practice mode to practice how you like, but the game also offers an extensive tutorial, teaching all the basics and when to use certain techniques to get in close or avoid being juggled. Every character has their own unique specials tutorial, as well as a combo master tutorial. Everything you need to practice is right here, and it's all very much appreciated. Overall, the gameplay is really top-notch stuff, and it's one of the few 2D fighters I think I can seriously get into. It comes with local versus and an online mode against friends or strangers, both friendly and ranked, with actually good netcode, which is the first time I experienced this for an Ark System Works game, to be honest. If facing or training up with CPUs is more your thing, then the option is there as well, both in Versus and Arcade mode, which actually gives the player the option to scale the difficulty after every match. The player gets choice: was that match too easy? Bump up the difficulty then. Too hard? Bring it down a level. Was it just at your skill level? Then continue onwards. It's one of the better arcade modes I have played in a 2D fighter, and you get some nice art for the extras menu. This menu also contains a full glossary to help newcomers to the Granblue IP learn more about their new favourite characters and world, which is always very appreciated. But if you really want to experience that, and still don't want to gatcha it up on mobile, then to my absolute shock, Granblue Fantasy Versus actually has a good story mode? I mean, fighting game standards, sure, but fighting game story modes are usually for the hardcore only. Not because they're difficult, but because they're pretty dull and repetitive. Yet Granblue manages to change things up with its RPG mode. You have regular battles, of course, intermingled with very simple dialogue scenes, but there are also special mission modes, raid battles, boss battles against primal beasts, and battles against mob enemies. Your character gains experience and levels up, you recruit more fighters as you go, and can equip new weapons to update your stats. These don't change how your character fights, but they can change how your weapon looks. They even brought in elements of the gatcha, where you can summon for additional weapons of varying quality, thankfully not with real money. It's a really good RPG mode with a decent enough story, and reminded me a lot of another good fighting game story mode, Soul Calibur 2. It's leagues better than any of the other Ark System stories out there, and is still being updated as more DLC is added. To quickly touch upon the DLC, as of this review, the first Fighter Pass is done and Season 2 has been confirmed. The question now is whether this is worth your time as well. And I guess it depends on your views of fighting game DLC. Personally, I don't really use either Beelzebub or Zooey that much, however Jita, Saurius and Narmania are all good fun, in that order from best to okay. Most of all, they are all unique. Jita shares some similarities with Gran, seeing as she is his female variant, but I find the changes they did make give her a slightly different approach to how you would fight, unlike with Gran. She's also less broken than Gran is, the ridiculous combo beast. Overall, I really enjoyed Granblue Fantasy Versus. Ark Systems have made consistently great fighting games, but out of all the ones I have played so far, I think Granblue might be my favourite. and I had no prior experience with this franchise, unlike with Granblue Fantasy Versus and Persona Arena. Presentation wise, it isn't as polished as Ark System's in-house series like Guilty Gear and BlazBlue, but I think its unique set of characters and welcoming gameplay mechanics make it a great starting spot for newcomers to the fighting game genre, while still adding something more hardcore to keep long-time fans around. It's no fantasy, Granblue Fantasy Versus is a great game, and one that I highly recommend. I want to thank Marvelous once again for sending us a copy of this game to review. I hope it has done them well. And thank you everyone for listening. I can't say I'm great at fighting games, but I do enjoy them, and I'm really surprised at how much I got into this one. Up to the level that I was seriously considering playing it competitively. Too bad none of us can actually go outside at the moment. But oh well. If you liked this video, let me know in the comments below, and let me know if it sort of convinced you to look into the Granblue series. I'd be really interested to know. It made me want to watch the anime. But if you just want to watch the screen right now, you'll see all of our $5 patrons who we want to give a special thanks to, as well as all of our $1 patrons and all of our other $5 plus patrons. I mean, they're also on the screen. But the point is, thank you everyone who supports us. And if you want to know how to support us via Patreon, the link is down below. But otherwise, just sharing this video with your friends and spreading the word is also a great way to show your support. With that, guys, I hope you have a wonderful day, and always remember to return to the source.